Okay, welcome everyone. We'll start in 1 minute. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Snohomish County Update. I'm Gary Clark, President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County. We would like to recognize and thank our elected officials that are joining today. A little housekeeping before we start. Engage us with the chat that you have in Zoom. Reminder though, that this event is being recorded. This event would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. We'd like to thank the Boeing Company, Herald Media, Kaiser Permanente, SmartCap, Wells Fargo, Classic Country, KXA, and Community Transit, DME CPA Group, Heritage Bank, Corey, and KRKO Greatest Hits. KRKO Greatest Hits is really great. Port of Everett and Providence Regional Medical Center, Everett. Snow Owl Libraries and Tulalip Tribes charitable contributions. We really thank you all. And our event sponsors, BECU, Coastal Community Bank, Linwood Conventional Center, and Snohomish County PUD. Thank you all. Next, I'd like to introduce Snohomish County Executive Dave Summers. One of my first meetings as a CEO was actually with Dave, and I was a little bit unsure of what to think. And I will tell you that immediately when I saw his backdrop, it wasn't a traditional elected official's backdrop. Dave is data-driven and results-oriented, particularly as it draws into growing and diversifying our economy. Dave is in his second term as the executive and has been leading Snohomish County's response to the pandemic. Dave, my friend, take it away.
Thank you, Gary. Hey, I'm really excited to have you on board leading the Economic Alliance here in Snohomish County. It's really a critical moment, and I'm really captured by your energy and enthusiasm and vision. So welcome, and really looking forward to the coming year and coming years working with you here in the county. So thank you so much. You know, you're going to hear the words partnership and team and the word we a lot here over the next hour. And that's because, you know, the last year, I think more than any other that I can remember, has really brought us together in just a really magnificent way in so many ways. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to start really thanking the Snohomish County Council and Chair Stephanie Wright, Vice Chair Megan Dunn, and Council members Nate Naring, Samuel and Jared Mead. Really appreciate your leadership and partnership as we navigate through the pandemic and our coming recovery with you. So thank you. And we all need to thank all the nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers that have been working so hard to keep us healthy and our medical systems working well. That was a critical goal going through this pandemic, was keeping the medical systems working well, and we accomplished that. Also, we all need to thank our first responders who've just been putting in a tremendous amount of work, long hours, working to keep us safe through the pandemic. And all those workers that really never could stand down, grocery workers, teachers, truck drivers, all the others who found themselves in the front lines of the crisis, we owe them a debt of gratitude. And I personally, a special thank you to all Snohomish County's employees for their adaptability and persistence in the face of uncertainty. Made a really uh, amazing transformation into the virtual world, kept operations running smoothly and efficiently, and everybody's been fully at work over the last year under very changed conditions. So what I'd like to do for the next few minutes is really uh, talk about the last year of the pandemic response and the things we've been doing and accomplished, and then give you a preview at the end of the next steps in our recovery. And in a few minutes, I'll turn it over to my Director of Department of Emergency Management, Jason Bierman, to give you some real detail. And so we're going to switch it up here today. But it was 17 months ago, the first case of COVID in the entire country was identified right here in Snohomish County. And I can remember getting the call from Jason about that. And ever since that moment, we've really been hands on deck in the response to COVID. And Jason will give details, but just amazing response. And the team was ready, uh, just ready to go and jump to work immediately. So we started with three important goals for our response to the pandemic. The first was to save lives, first and most important. The second was keeping our healthcare system functioning. I mentioned that already. And the third, helping to ease the impacts on individuals, families, and businesses. And I know how hard this has been on everybody, from families to individuals to our businesses. It's been terrible, but we've been doing everything we could to try to get us through this together in best shape as we could. Everybody who missed a holiday with family had to wear a mask. I can remember being uncomfortable first time I had to do it. Everybody's gotten vaccinated, skipped worship services, haven't had to postpone weddings or funerals. They all did their part really to keep our community healthy and safe. Hundreds of thousands of people across the county protected themselves in their community with the from the deadliest pandemic in over 100 years. None of us wanted to do this. None of us wanted the disruptions, but we did it to save lives and keep our community as safe as possible. So sadly, in Snohomish County, 37,000 people have had COVID-19, and we've lost nearly 600 of our residents. And my heart goes out to everybody that's lost a loved one or a friend. It's been terrible, but we can't lose sight of the fact it could have been much worse. I was going over media newspaper clips on Sunday, and there was an MSN analysis which compared the three counties in the Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, Everett metropolitan area. So the counties of Snohomish, Pierce, and King. And they found that Snohomish County had the lowest infection rate per 100,000 population of those three counties. Our rate is about 4,600 infections per 100,000 residents. That's less than half the national average of close to 10,000. And considering we had the first case in the country and have been at this longer than anyone else, that's really an encouraging sign and really a testament to the hard work of the team and all of you. So again, thank you. Um, we know there's been a significant cost for many of our families who lost jobs in our businesses. So our strategy for the response took all these impacts into account and were forefront in our minds. Some of the things we've accomplished over the last year: our Emergency Coordination Center at the Department of Emergency Management has now been activated for 438 days straight. That's a long time to be activated and stood up. We've provided PPE to frontline workers, first responders, and care providers throughout the county who needed them. So that work was focused through Department of Emergency Management. We stood up support for childcare for essential workers and first responders, trying to help ensure that they could continue to work and have their families taken care of. We also set up food distribution and even established an innovative program to buy food from local farmers to provide those in need with fresh produce, helping our agricultural industry at a time when they saw a demand from the restaurant industry collapse and keep that food supply going. We even expanded our home delivery meal program by 40% for our homebound seniors and vulnerable populations. Again, all work coming out of Department of Emergency Management. We rolled out a number of grant programs to help small businesses, aerospace companies, nonprofits, and workers to help those businesses during this downturn and during the shutdowns in particular. We even provided new housing options to take care of residents who were unsheltered and at risk of spreading COVID-19. We provided rent relief for those who got behind due to COVID and are at risk of eviction when the moratorium ends. The team has conducted community outreach to support behavioral health and other basic needs, making contact with over 2,800 households from July through December. We have provided emergency vouchers to help thousands or households, meet immediate urgent needs. So, of course, early on, we set up the quarantine center and testing facilities, and we have set up mass vaccination sites with our partners in the Snohomish County Vaccine Task Force and the Health District, and have been able to get hundreds of thousands of our residents vaccinated. We still have a ways to go, but we've made really significant progress. We started the planning for vaccinations last July. That was well before we even knew when we were going to be getting vaccines, but we were ready when they did arrive. So I'm also really excited now. Authorization has been given. So today we'll be vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds at our mass vaccination sites. So they are now eligible. Approvals came through, and again, as usual, the team was ready to go. We got the word late last night, and they're already ready to go to conduct that activity with 12 to 15-year-olds today. Again, team, we didn't do this alone. We worked with the health district, cities, towns, tribes, first responders, school districts, volunteers, nonprofits, and for-profit companies. Really reached out to everyone who was willing to help. And I'm so proud of Snohomish County and all our partners. Everybody's chipped in, been working cooperatively through really difficult and trying times. And I couldn't be more proud of the county and everybody we've been working with. We've also realized and want to ensure we're reaching every community within Snohomish County. We know COVID did not impact every community equally. Seniors were the most vulnerable and had high hospitalization and death rates, had challenges with transportation, access, computer access, all kinds of reasons why seniors were having difficulties. BIPOC communities had higher rates of infection than many others and therefore higher rates of death. And our rural communities had unique challenges, particularly when it comes to accessing healthcare, education, and the essentials. You can imagine when everybody went online for education, those areas of the county that have poor or no internet access were really challenged. So we're really trying to focus our work to make sure we understand those impediments and those challenges, and we're working to reach every community. We've also, in particular, focused our vaccination effort, not focused, but made sure we maintain an important focus on getting shots into as many arms as possible, while ensuring we were working to reach communities where they were. So our mass vaccination sites have been really effective, but we're now doing a lot of outreach to communities that have particular needs and access difficulties. Our Office of Social Justice has been really critical in bridging some of the gaps between the county and our efforts and those communities. And so thank you so much to them. And we really built off our work and partnerships we developed during the census activities 2 years ago. So, county government isn't very high profile. We go about our work really to try to deliver the best service we can. But during this past year, I've been so proud of the people who stepped forward, really gave their time, did what they could to keep our community safe, and they're still at it at this very moment. Everyone has risen to the challenge and done their best to serve Snohomish County, from our partners on the county council, the frontline staff joining efforts, the emergency coordination center, the health district. We've been working as a team. So you can't imagine the logistics and the planning and the work that it takes to stand up some of these efforts. And I'm just amazed every day by the team and what they accomplish and their readiness and willingness to jump to the task. So you all should be very, very proud of them also. So now I'd like to turn the floor over to Jason Bierman. He's really been at the center of our response to the pandemic. Jason is an Army veteran, former wildland firefighter, and is now the director of Department of Emergency Management. And I'm extremely grateful that he's running emergency management during the crisis. We really couldn't have done any of this without him. So Jason, you take it away.
Thanks, Dave. I think I successfully unmuted myself. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks to all of you for a chance to talk a little bit about some of the real specifics of what the response to COVID-19 has looked like. Dave mentioned at the start partnerships, and it's interesting. I can't see all of you on my screen because I know there are a lot of you, but even looking at my screen, I see so many faces from organizations that have been partners with us throughout this entire thing. Private sector, nonprofits. I see folks from VOA. I see folks from the state. Hey, Steve. Folks from other county departments. So I'm going to go into these numbers and the details, but I think it's important to note, like Dave said, it's really been partnerships in the team. It's been folks from all over the county who have pulled together to make all this happen. So I'm really blessed to have a team here, but really the team has been the county pulling together and working together to get us through all this. I'm going to bring up some of these details so you can see them and not have to look at me, which is a far better option. Just to go into the overview of what we do, normally Dave talked about how county government's not very high profile. Normally emergency management's not very high profile either, and that's generally a good thing. We certainly do our best to prepare for things, but I think for most of you, the less you see of us, generally the better off everybody feels, because we're not flooding or in the midst of an earthquake or anything like that. But we are in the midst of the pandemic, so it is our job to coordinate the response to the county's response to any emergency or large disaster. And so that's what we do. Part of what we do with that is take the priorities of our elected folks like the executive and the council, and Dave mentioned, saving lives, making sure that we could keep the healthcare system intact and from being overwhelmed, and then easing the impacts. We take those and then we establish goals for how we're going to do that work from the Emergency Coordination Center. If you haven't been to our shop, that's okay. We're tucked away in a small facility, kind of hidden away, but it's a great facility where we bring in partners from different agencies to help us work together to achieve these goals. This has been a long response. It has been a very, very long response. Most of it's been dedicated to maybe some fairly basic things, but things that have been really important. And Dave touched on a couple of these, and I'll just provide some extra details. One of those, of course, has been supporting the resource requests and making sure that we could provide personal protective equipment, or PPE, to our folks who are most at risk of getting COVID-19. I want to highlight a couple of things. Our focus was certainly the list you see on there, the frontline workers, the first responders, making sure that they're safe. But it's important to highlight, while we procured a lot of PPE, our community also came together and donated over 4 million pieces of PPE to us early on when everyone was struggling to find personal protective equipment. We asked the community to donate and set up a couple of donation locations, and we're able to get over 4 million pieces of PPE that were donated. So that's pretty awesome. We also stood up the isolation and quarantine facility and some of the other things that have been put in place, all in support of partners around and making sure that we could keep the community as safe as we could from COVID-19. We've also worked in food security. Nourishing Neighborhoods is the program that Dave mentioned earlier that brings food purchased from local farmers and provides that food free of charge to some of our most vulnerable communities. We had folks who did an analysis of where folks were most at risk, and that's where we bring the food. We also support food banks. You'll note on there We wanted to provide support to food banks. So we did that through funding. And we also wanted to ensure that kids who normally get their food through their school programs, that we could continue to support those. So all of that work has been ongoing in our efforts to mitigate the impacts on Snohomish County. We heard early on that childcare was going to be an issue. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that our essential workers could continue to go to work. So very early on, going all the way back to March of last year in 2020, we started working with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club of Snohomish County to ensure that our essential workers would actually have childcare available to them, and so they could continue to go to work and do the great work that they do day in and day out. We wanted to protect our most vulnerable folks. I mentioned earlier the isolation and quarantine facility. That facility is incredibly important. You know, we have a human services department that works continuously to relieve the effects and the suffering from the pandemic. They deal quite a bit with folks who are unsheltered. So if it's behavioral challenges, homelessness, seniors needing assistance, and others, rental assistance. Our human services department has always been there to help. They helped us with this as well, as did the health district. And that was ensuring that we had a space where folks who needed to safely either isolate or quarantine, where they could go. We've provided assistance to, as you can see, over 1,000 folks in emergency shelters, over 350 folks who we were able to bring out of the community and into the isolation and quarantine facility. This was a requirement under the governor's Safe Start plan, and with the support of the executive and council, we've kept that going because we found this to be very important, ensuring that we can keep folks who may be at risk of spreading COVID-19 out of the community. And along the way, I mentioned human services. They provided 5,600 households with rental assistance. So a massive amount of work that's happening to ensure folks can stay in their homes as well. We've done a lot of work to support businesses. You can see the numbers up there. This is vital to all of the work. We know all of you on the call have been helping us during the response. And of course, we wanted to make sure that we could support businesses and workers as well. You know, in April of last year, we had the highest unemployment rate in the state at over 19%. And that sort of speaks to how dislocated our economy had become. With our colleagues who work on economic development, we set up an Office of Economic Recovery and Resiliency. That was the first one in the state, to ensure that we had focused work to help these businesses and workers. And you can see the product. Sorry, I'm pointing at my screen as though you can see it. You actually can. That there were focused things that we could do to ensure that we were tapping into community expertise and getting ideas from folks out in the community. They also launched a Shop Local campaign that's called Support SNOCO on Black Friday last year to encourage folks to keep their money in our small businesses. And most importantly, these rounds of grants, 3 rounds of grants that went to small businesses, as well as grants to aerospace companies, a sector that was hit particularly hard, as folks know. And want to highlight that there's great appreciation for the partnership with Workforce Snohomish, who helped us quickly get these resources out into the community. In total, with this slide, what you see and the other things that were done, there was about $47 million that was spent on business and worker support. Executive Summers talked about the vaccine distribution. Yes, we did start planning this very early with the support of lots of partners, including the Health District, of course, South County Fire, Everett Fire, a number of other fire districts, the Sheriff's Office. It actually takes a lot of folks looking at things from a lot of different angles to make the vaccine work happen, because it does affect every, sort of facet of life, and from managing folks who are coming in to ensuring that all of the vaccinations happen safely. We started planning for this back in July. Right now, we have 7 mass vaccination sites that are situated throughout the county, and that's by design. Some of those are drive-through, some of those are walk-up. That's part of an overall, what we call the overall puzzle. It's important to highlight that we have healthcare providers and pharmacy providers who are also providing vaccinations. Right now, we've had over 600,000 vaccine shots that have been given in Snohomish County. You can see we've now fully vaccinated about 274,000 Snohomish County residents, which is pretty awesome. That's a third of the population, but importantly, it's nearly 45% of our residents over age 16. As Executive Summers mentioned, we're now also starting to vaccinate, as of today, folks who are 12 to 15 with the Pfizer vaccine, which was approved late last night. Kudos to my team for getting an email late last night and managing to be ready this morning to start vaccinating. And we're doing some targeted things. Our mass vaccination sites really, we talk about throughput because that's important. Those are places where we can get literally thousands of people per day through a site. But we're also going out into the communities, working with our Office of Social Justice, working with fire and EMS providers, working with others and doing community-based clinics, sending folks out into adult family homes so they can vaccinate folks who are there. And even when necessary, sending out teams to go into homebound residents' homes so folks who cannot actually get out of their homes are getting vaccinated as well. You know, the support of all of you is really important to this. And I just want to highlight one last thing, if I may, when it comes to these vaccines. Please, as much as you can, I'm asking, as much as you can, support vaccine accessibility for your employees. We want to make sure that your employees get accurate information about the vaccines, and we want to make sure that if you're not getting that we're getting it to you. We know there's been some hesitation around some of the vaccines. We want you to know, and we want them to know that they're safe, they're effective, they're free of cost. You don't need insurance. We've heard from some folks, some feedback about their concerns about being penalized if they miss work because they have to get to their appointment to get their shot, or some of the after effects of getting vaccinated, which can include things like getting a mild fever, having a sore arm, you know, being fatigued. I just recently, actually last Friday, got my second Pfizer dose and experienced a little bit of that over the weekend. We want to make sure, at least I want to make sure that we highlight, please try and make it accessible to your employees and that they have the ability to get over and get vaccinated. It's truly an investment that will, over the long term, make sure your workforce stays intact, your customers are safe. And so just wanted to highlight that. That's really important. And the last thing, before I turn it back over to Executive Summers, I would be completely remiss if I didn't highlight the work of the team that's worked here at the Emergency Coordination Center, of folks who have worked pretty tirelessly for a long, long time. That graph you see, it's not intended to be an eye test, but that orange graph is number of hours, and you can see early on we had weeks. The axis on the bottom is the weeks where there were over 2,000 staff hours in a week for folks working in the ECC. It's been 438 days. Before this, our longest activation was for the SR 530, the OSO slide, which was 40 days. I was here for that. And after that, we thought that was potentially the longest response any of us would ever see in our careers. I will say after that response, Executive Summers and the council, with their support, we started a training program, made some changes to county code with the intent that if we ever had an incident that was large scale again, and we couldn't count on our neighbors to send us folks the way we did during OSO, that we would have a team here in Snohomish County that was trained and ready to go into action. And with Dave's support, with the council support, we actually have that. And that's enabled a lot of these things to happen. And that's been a really cool thing for me to see. And I think to benefit the entire county. Those folks come from all over. You can see we've had 18 different agencies represented in here, closing in on a couple of hundred different folks and almost 55,000 hours of work. So it's a true honor for me to lead this team, to lead DEM and the team of professionals that are working on this. And I'm going to close with something I often say. It's the ultimate team sport. Everybody here on the call, my team here, we're all part of that team. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Executive Summers. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jason. And I wanted to point out, done a magnificent job. DEM, Department of Emergency Management, has a pretty small staff, permanent staff, and they rely on workers from throughout the county government, but we quickly teamed up with the health district, brought them into our emergency management center, city of Everett, others from around the county, created this group of people. We saw, I think, 174 individuals that really have other jobs normally, but they were trained and ready to go. And that's really a tribute to your planning and leadership, Jason. So thank you for that. So I just want to spend a few minutes here to talk about what the next year looks like as we shift towards recovery. Jason, true to form, had started bringing up recovery to us last fall and wanted us to start thinking about it. So just like he was planning for vaccines last July, he's been thinking about recovery for quite some time. So again, we're ready, been giving it a lot of thought. First point is vaccinations really remain the best and quickest way to get us out of the pandemic. So we've done a great job. As Jason mentioned, over 274,000 of our residents have been fully vaccinated. That's great. We've got a ways to go yet. And the easy group of people that were just lined up, ready to go and very anxious to get their vaccines, we've gone through that, and now we have harder to reach groups, and as Jason mentioned, maybe people that have some concerns or have impediments, might be work or family or transportation, or all kinds of things can get in the way. But really getting vaccinations is the way out of this, and we're making great progress, but we got to keep going, and we need your help on that. Our vaccination rates now are one of the reasons our death rates remain low, and hospitalizations have not been skyrocketing during this past fourth wave. So that's really helped to mitigate the damage. So we want to continue working with our partners. If you haven't been vaccinated yourself, now would be a great time to do it. You no longer need to make a reservation. We have walk up, drive up at all our mass vaccination sites. We have significant capacity at our mass vaccination sites. And also at local pharmacies, your healthcare providers, etc. Please go get vaccinated. And I think the news today, very exciting that kids age 12 to 16 are now eligible. They can go to NER sites. They do need to have a parent or an adult with them when they go, but please get them vaccinated also. And we are working to come up with ideas to provide incentives throughout the county. So as an employer or business owner, please consider what you can do to really give your staff the ability to get the vaccination. And that might include time off or some other consideration. We're asking and have asked businesses to consider providing discounts to those who've been vaccinated, et cetera. So every little bit and every little bit of encouragement is going to help. So we have a couple goals. Recovery is different than the response, but our real goals are to strategize, be strategic, be organized and focused, and to stabilize. So really, to be strategic, we're focused on immediacy. Businesses need to reopen their doors. People need to get back to work, those that are still out. People need outreach and skills development to match them to available jobs. Hearing actually a shortage in many areas of workers. So the immediate concerns of getting the economy back up and running and getting people back to work and get our communities healing is a primary goal for us. We also want to be inclusive. We know that even from our CARES Act or the federal funding last year, that moving resources just exclusively and very quickly through all our existing channels and systems and processes can really exacerbate economic and racial inequality. So we've got to be mindful about making sure that our efforts are inclusive of everybody in the county. And that takes special focus and understanding and working with those communities to make sure we're serving everybody. And we want to be complementary to the actions that we've put in place and the systems we've put in place. They're efficient. Over the last year, we've stood up many processes, worked with many partners to get money out into the community. So we're going to be looking to use those channels that we have created to great effect. So we're very efficient. And we're also thinking about future prosperity. We really do have a chance to invest in future growth and prosperity here in the county. And we need to be thinking long-term and recognize our investments can really extend far beyond the deadline to spend the federal funding. So we want to be strategic and really look to the future. We want to really be organized again. We need to continue developing further partnerships, and they change a little bit in recovery from response, but we're going to continue to be organized and develop those public-private partnerships. And thank you for all your help, but we'll continue reaching out to work with all of you to get into recovery. And again, looking to stabilize our economy and stabilize our community, and that's a primary goal. So I really want to say we need the help of all of you. You know, I was a biologist, and I think I've told this story before. I was a fish biologist and studied biology and ecology. And we study things like the effects of floods and fires and landslides and other major disruptions. Are called disturbances in ecology. And one thing we have found, there's what's considered tremendous damage when you're going through these events, just like over the last year of COVID, the damage it's done to families and individuals and businesses. From that, though, usually come new opportunities that are in front of us, and they are there, and we need to recognize them and focus on them and take advantage of them to speed our recovery, get us back on our feet, and be stronger than ever. And my sincere belief is, given the amazing work you've all done this year, this past year together, I'm very confident we're going to come out of this stronger and better, and despite the pain that we've been through. So thank you for all that, and thank you for your partnership. And as we go forward with our programs, just look forward to those partnerships. And again, thank you. So I'd like to finish by playing a video, one of the videos that we produced last year with CARES Act funding to encourage people to shop locally and support our Main Street businesses. I think it's a good example of some of the creative work we've tried to do. So Jason, do you have the ability to share that?
Yes, I hope. I think I do. This is the Support SNOCO campaign. So let me bring this up. And
our country is built on small businesses. That's how we got our start. I think at the end of the day, the number one purpose of a business is to help and serve your community.
My dream was always to open a small shop with tourism, so I could say to every person, where are you from? Just to get to know people.
So many things have happened here. People have been engaged here. They've had their first date here. You know, they've had serious conversations here.
There's so many stories that come through that door. So many stories. And when they go out that door, they feel good.
Our customers feel like they're a part of our family. And I hope that they always feel like they have a little bit of home.
It is really important for the community to support small business, because, you know, like a small business support the community a lot.
The practice of hospitality is to essentially take a stranger and enemy and turn them into a friend. This has been a particularly challenging time to live that out.
This has been a storm for everybody, not knowing one day to the next what's going to happen.
The least fun part of being in business is surviving these kind of unprecedented challenges that we're experiencing right now.
We're choosing to stay open and do another year, but it's do or die.
The county has actually been really great during COVID in helping us to keep our customers safe. They have given us anything we would possibly need.
They let us put signs up and saying that, hey, we're still alive, we're still open, so just little things like that that the county let us do, kept us alive out here.
We love being in Snohomish County. People are just genuinely nice and care about each other.
Being an entrepreneur, you have to have that drive. If you don't have it, if you don't want it, you're gonna fail. And that's not an option for me.
Patience, perseverance, the support, and the community. That's the whole thing.
I have several employees that have been anywhere from 26 years to 33 years.
Our proudest moment continues to be every day that we open up. It happens every day, and every day when we finish the job and we're still open.
I can tell you with 100% certainty, that if we didn't have a community of people coming out to support us every day, we wouldn't be here. So it's everything.
Every time a customer walks in the door, I am so grateful. I do a happy dance every day in my little body.
We're all just, when we say we're in it together, we're in it together.
We have to protect the heart and soul of America, and that is our small businesses.
What I'd like to see for 2021, all the little struggling business, I want to see us all make it to the finish line. All of us make it to the finish line.
Amazing. It says it all. But before I turn it back to Gary, thank you all. We know our work is not done yet. Recovery takes a while, and there's a lot of work yet to be done, and we're going to keep at it with all of you. And I think some of you have seen the announcement today. We will be having an Evergreen State Fair this year. So we'll be seeing what it looks like, but I'm very hopeful that things are going to get better quickly very soon, and we're here to help you in any way we can. So Gary, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thanks, Dave. That was a really awesome video. Every time I see it, I think, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry. I think what's clear from your presentation and Jason's presentation is that we here in Snohomish County are focused on not only the people, but the entrepreneurship, because we realize the essence of that is really pushing us forward. The idea and concept of having a business is to make things better for people. And so we appreciate you all sharing that. With that in mind though, Dave, we have some questions for you and Jason as well. First question that I have here is, obviously the past year has been tough on aerospace industry. So do you think we should be optimistic or pessimistic about the future of Boeing and other aerospace companies in Snohomish County?
I think we need to have every reason to be really optimistic. Last fall, I met with Stan Deal, head of commercial air at Boeing, down at their headquarters in Renton. And he assured me that Everett and Snohomish County were an important part of their past and a really important part of their future. They've made a huge investment here. The Everett plant is their largest facility in the world. It's going to be in their future plans. We know the trauma they've been through and the shakeup and changes they've needed to make, but I'm very convinced that they see a bright future here in Everett. And we need to make sure we're putting in place everything we can do to make that happen. So it's worker development, workforce development, it's transportation investments, it's helping workers through this time of difficulty, make sure they're keeping going and not leaving the area. So we have a lot of work to do to support them, but I'm very optimistic. And there's good news every day from Boeing. I saw Alaska's taking an option on, I think it's like 12 or 13 planes, 737s that they had kind of put on hold, and things are going to pick up here quickly. And we just need to support aerospace, and not just Boeing, but all the parts of aerospace here in the county through this time.
Thank you, Dave. There's another question from Wendy from Country Inn and Suites. The question is the county optimistic about the usual sporting events, specifically soccer during the months of June and July, taking place as planned due to the vaccines and great progress made?
Yeah, I am hopeful, and I think the numbers we're seeing, if we keep on this pace and we keep going, we're going to have a really significant part of our county vaccinated. I'm hopeful that we don't see some other variant or strain come through, but the vaccinations have proved very effective, and you're already seeing sporting events around the region starting up again, and with special consideration perhaps for even allowing those who've been vaccinated to get together much as they did before the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to the summer. We wouldn't have said yes to starting up the fair if I didn't really think we were going to be able to have particularly outdoor events, but sporting goods, sporting events and fairs and things like that.
Yeah, it feels amazing, and to just have that momentum moving forward. Another question that I have here, Dave, is and Jason, is what do you think will be the long-term impacts of the pandemic on our local economy?
I'll start, and Jason, if you want to jump in from your perspective too. I think again, things aren't going to be exactly the same as they were. We know we've lost some businesses, but if you look at the skilled workforce we have here, the amazing businesses, we've actually seen not really a drop off in interest in Snohomish County. All the companies that are investing in Snohomish County throughout everywhere, from Linwood to Everett to up to the Cascade Industrial Center, there's a lot of interest in the county and a lot of recognition that we're really a great place to live and work. So I'm very optimistic. It's going to take some time, particularly hospitality and tourism travel, that was hit extremely hard and is a little slower to start up. But I don't see anything that's fundamentally changed, or I see Snohomish County as being more desirable for many reasons than in the past. Jason, you have any thoughts on that?
You touched on most of them, Dave. I think there will be opportunity, right? I mean, obviously the world's going to fundamentally change in some ways, but I think, we're in a great space to take advantage of that. And there's a lot of opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. I'll break it up a little bit here with another question from one of our EASC folks. The question was, will there be a scones fair this year? So Dave, I'm gonna hit you with that tough question.
I think we'd have a big problem on our hands if there weren't scones at the fair. So that's an avoidable problem.
All right, Jason, you want to piggyback on that one?
I see Tom Tigan with his thumbs up, so I'm going to defer to his two big thumbs up. So looks like that's a go.
Awesome. Another question here is, what has been the most important part of the response to the pandemic?
Well, from my standpoint, the amazing reaction by the community. And I mentioned that we fared better than King or Pierce County. Our state is number 13 best in response nationwide. So, as both a county, but as a state and a community, it's just, I think when you go through things like this together, and you develop those partnerships and you accomplish what we've accomplished, that has lasting impact and lasting benefit. And we want to carry those to our recovery efforts and into the future. So to me, that's the most gratifying. From an emergency management standpoint, Jason?
Yeah, it's the ultimate team sport. It's the teamwork. You know, for better or worse, we've had some previous disasters in the county that have brought us together, and we've worked really hard to keep those relationships going. And I'm not going to say that every disaster has their rough spots, right? Like it's not a perfectly smooth glide path, but with the health district, with council, with other partners, like I said, so many that I can see on this call, we've worked through all of that, and everyone stepped up. I mean, people did really cool things with really little notice, and that's been, I think, the amazing part for me.
I see another question here in the chat pertaining to the impact, partly due to the pandemic, I believe, but also just in general. The question is, has the county figured out some remedies or options to handle the homeless concerns in the community?
Yeah, that's been a major focus for us over the, well, not just the last year, prior to that, but and will be in the future. We have really stood up some tremendous programs to get people into shelter. It's a big part of our planning now. We're getting federal dollars, the American Recovery Plan dollars that are coming our way. How we make sure that there's housing for people to go to and is available, and housing that isn't provided by the market. You know, there's just a need at a certain level for getting people shelter, then helping them to get back on their feet or take care of whatever impediments they have to get on a track to being not homeless. So that's a big part of our planning. We just touched really lightly on what Human Services Department did. It's been a massive part of this effort and thinking, and it is as we go forward. So we're looking at all kinds of options, and there isn't a day that goes by that we aren't talking about shelter, housing, and at all levels, and we'll continue to focus on that over the coming months and years, frankly.
And Jason, I'll start with you on this question from Crystal. Thoughts on whether or not your thinking has evolved around emergency preparedness, how to be ready for the next one. Let's hope that next one is not a pandemic, but something else. But definitely start with you, Jason, if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, I saw her question. Yeah, you know, I think two things. And this is where I sound like the guy you don't want at your parties. You know, we in terms of preparedness, yeah, I mean, we live in earthquake country. The pandemic, you know, in terms of kind of my work and what we do, I wouldn't say it unraveled slowly, but it certainly wasn't as fast as something that happens without any notice at all, and something that's very devastating. So I think for me, it just reemphasized all of our efforts around everyone being prepared, because we live in a place where we have hazards that don't give us any notice, don't give us any lead time. And I think the other one is we had done a fair amount of work ahead of time with private sector folks and the supply chain folks and that kind of thing, and just really embracing, again, it's the whole community has to be involved. It's not government is not going to solve all of the solutions and all, or have all the solutions and solve all the problems. We need private sector, nonprofit, everybody else to be integrated into this. And so certainly we're going to push harder on that as well, and keep my folks out of the thinking that kind of the traditional model that we all get trained on coming up through emergency management maybe needs to change a bit, because the world's a lot more complex when we get to these big issues.
Yeah, I would really like to take the example of what we've been through this last year and capture the sort of energy and the partnerships and expand on that. From an elected official standpoint, I think every elected official should be trained in emergency management and preparedness so they understand the importance of it. We had the experience of OSO, which was very traumatic for the county and the community. In a way, it made us stronger, but we need to build on this and just make sure that emergency management, emergency preparedness is part of our everyday thinking and planning and is given the support it needs to be ready. And because when these events happen, I've seen communities around the country that were not prepared for this and still aren't prepared for it, and they suffer for it greatly. And just again, thanks to Jason, his team's foresight. He had been thinking about these types of events and was ready, and we were much better off for it, and we just need to double down on that.
All right, well, I thank you both. I have one final question. I'll sandwich them together for the good of the order, and appreciate you all letting me attempt to be Larry King today. Here we have a question. What's the quickest way for us to get things back to some sort of normal? And then coupled with that is we're seeing road congestion return. Do you think the legislature will convene or reconvene to pass a transportation budget? So sandwich those together for the final question.
Yeah, it doesn't look likely to me that they're going to reconvene, but I've given up trying to guess what the legislature is going to do. We know that transportation is a huge priority throughout the state and the region, so I'm confident there will be a package. It may be next session, but we have here in the county, again, coordinated and organized ourselves across the county, and we have a list of priorities. We have projects ready to go. We have a list. We're in agreement on it. So when we go to Olympia, we're together on that, so we'll be pushing for those things. And I think you see the growth up in North County. It's going to create some new challenges for us, but we're aware of them. We're talking not only to the state but to the federal government about assistance with those, and it'll continue to be a priority. And the absolute quickest way to get things back to normal is get everybody vaccinated that we can. I mean, that's the path. It's really important. And so if you know anybody that's a little hesitant or has a hurdle in front of them or an impediment, please do everything you can to just get it, because that's really the way.
And Jason, I'll give you the final word here on that.
Dave said it. Please get your shot, get vaccinated, convince your family and friends. It's the quickest and it's definitive, right? It's these other things help mitigate the effects, but getting vaccinated is the one that really changes everything definitively. So please get vaccinated.
All right. Well, I want to thank Dave and Jason for joining us today. It's an honor to work with you all and get to know you as you lead us through this pandemic. Again, I'm Gary Clark, President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County. We want to thank our partners who helped us to get this going forward, our ongoing partners, the Boeing Company, obviously, Herald Media, Kaiser Permanente, SmartCap, Wells Fargo, Classic Country, KXA, and Community Transit, Heritage Bank, DME, CPA Group, Corey and KRKO, Greatest Hits, Port of Everett, Providence Regional Medical Center, Everett, Snow Owl Libraries, and Tulalip Tribes charitable contributions. And obviously we have our wonderful event sponsors. So thank you very much everyone for joining us. Remember, Tuesday, 8:30 a.m., another coffee chat. And so please join us again. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, county officials, elected officials, and those of you who are business owners and just community hopefuls. We also have our 10th anniversary actually for the EASC, Economic Alliance Snohomish County, and we're going to have our annual meeting on June 10th at 8:30 a.m. So the slogan and message for that is resilient together. So we hope to see you there. Thanks again, Dave, for your leadership, Snohomish County. You rock.